I had one question that was somewhat related to what Cooper brought up, which is, obviously at a rally yesterday, Trump said everybody's going to vote, and then the lawyers are going to start working immediately after the votes. So is he talking about contesting ballots? Is he talking about contesting votes? What do we expect the lawyers are going to be doing over the course of the next, few days, the next week?
Well, it depends on the margin in the state, but they are going to be contesting the procedures. Example, Florida. Example, Pennsylvania, whether those absentee ballots that are received after election day should be counted or not. In the state of Texas, it's been ruled that drive-in voting can be counted, and there have been about 127,000 of those drive-in voting votes cast already. But Texas, like Pennsylvania, are segregating those votes, so there may very well be litigation relating to whether those should be counted. Again, it depends on the margin and what the overall picture is. And then a litigation relating to the actual counting of the ballots, whether it's a valid ballot or not. When you go in and you sign your name, is that signature the same as your voter registration? Well, if I'm a lawyer and I realize that you're a Democratic voter, I might say, that signature is different, and therefore don't open the envelope. It shouldn't count. So there's all sorts of things like that. And then once the ballot is open, you have lawyers monitoring that. And you may have circled Biden's name instead of filled in the oval. And that is totally acceptable in most states because it evidences the intent of the voter. But I don't think that's valid. And I'm going to challenge it because the instructions are very clear to fill in the oval. So there's all sorts of stuff that lawyers, this is why people don't like lawyers, that the lawyers will get involved in.
I hole punched my ballot. Is that okay?
If you're in Florida in the year 2000.
I had one more question, and there are a couple of audience questions, and I want to be respectful of both your time. I know you have to teach a class in a few minutes. My question is, suppose that Andrew's prognostications come, they're realized, tomorrow night, and the election's decided in favor of Biden. Do you anticipate, for instance, in Texas, that these legal challenges will continue because the scope of the victory is still going to be important? Or would those kinds of legal challenges stop, assuming that there's a Biden victory pretty quickly?
Well, the real answer, of course, is I don't know. It depends on the margins in the various states that have apparently given Biden at least 270 electoral college votes. If it's clear that he won Florida to the rest of the world, but the Republicans view the margin as sufficiently problematic, they might very well challenge it if that's necessary to bring him down below 270. What's more likely to happen is there will be challenges in multiple states in order to bring the margins down, either to shift it to his column or to make it ambiguous as to who won. And if that occurs, then we can expect the courts to really make determinations that will decide who won. So even if Andrew is right, they may very well aggressively pursue their litigation in order to create ambiguity and perhaps even change the result. Because there's so many absentee ballots that it's very hard to feel 100% comfortable that that Biden could win outright tomorrow night or Wednesday morning.
Well, and also to that point, Jerry, I mean, with the example of Texas, even if Biden is clearly the winner of the presidency, those votes could make the difference in the Senate race there or the railroad commissioner race. So
Yeah, well, that's true.
I would expect Republicans would, go all out to do what they can to muck around in things, even if the presidential race is decided.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
Someone asked that in the event that this goes to a contested election before Congress, would it be the new Congress that comes in, or would it be the old Congress?
Oh, good question. It would be the new Congress. The new Congress takes their seats January 3rd.
And it's decided not by the vote of everybody in Congress, but by state vote, which is why, right, even though with today's Congress, if it were today's Congress, even though Democrats control the House, they would
that's
lose
if
that
the
vote.
House, that's if the House chooses the president. But Congress on January 6th tallies the votes, and the House and the Senate both have to agree which slate of electors is the right one, or even if there's only one slate of electors, whether or not that's legitimate. As I say, for the most part, in all of our, this being the 59th presidential election, for the most part, most of this has gone relatively smoothly. There's been, a handful of elections where there's been congressional contention and judicial intervention and so on, but for the most part, it's not been the case. And I'll leave you with one fun fact that 10 of our presidents have run for re-election and they lost. And they just very graciously, although not very happily, handed over the keys to the White House. Grace is not exactly in this guy's DNA, but I think he will be forced to make good on his promise to leave the country if he loses.
Do you think even if he loses, he'll ever admit that he lost?
No. No, probably not. I think it would have been stolen from him.
If he loses, my prediction is he'll start running for 2024. I don't think he'll ever actually run, but he'll act like he's running until the day to file in 2024, and it will be 3 years of him complaining about how it was stolen from him and ginning up his base even further.
Yeah.
And then Don Jr. will run.
To address a different issue, if he loses, there's no question in my mind that he will either pardon himself or resign at the last minute and have Pence pardon him. But that doesn't impact state prosecution. The pardon power only relates to federal prosecution. And Cyrus Vance is hot on his trail, so that's not going to go away.
That's the next webinar.
Okay.
So
there's also no doubt in my mind that even if he loses, he will still be the lead story on the news for, people think he's out of our life. I think even if he loses in a landslide, he's still leading the number one story on the news for the foreseeable future almost every single night.
Well, I think you're right. So I represented Pete Buttigieg when he was running here in New York, and he used to say it's time to change the channel. So even though he will try to dominate the news, we don't really have to listen to him anymore.
we'll see if that's the reality or not.
Yeah, we don't know. We really don't know.
Yeah.
Let's just get through this week first, and then we'll deal with changing the TV channel in December or January, depending on. Well,
thank you, Lee. Thank you, Cooper. And nice to share a panel with you, Andrew.
Thank you
guys.
This was great. Appreciate your time, everyone.
Sure. Take care.
Thanks all.